Fantasy versus reality in work performance. Many workers today carry a quiet assumption. They're convinced that, under the right conditions, they could unleash a much higher level of performance. This belief feels reassuring because it keeps potential alive without requiring evidence. As long as you hold on to the idea that you could do better, you don't actually need to confront the numbers in front of you. You can live in a state where peak productivity feels just within reach, deferred until circumstances line up. The problem is that once reality presses in, deadlines, measurable outcomes, unfinished tasks, the comfort of that imagined version of yourself starts to fracture. This difference between imagined potential and delivered results becomes especially clear in how people use modern tools. Calendars fill themselves with recurring tasks, dashboards classify goals, and algorithm-driven assistants promise to optimize your time. At first glance, it looks nearly impossible to fail with so much support. But the data doesn't match the promise. Research continues to show that when workers collect more tools, attention splinters. People spend their hours refining timelines, reorganizing notes, and learning new software features instead of advancing on actual work. In practice, the very systems designed to increase effectiveness often become a way to maintain the fantasy. Imagine this scenario. You spend an entire morning setting up a new productivity app. Categories are built, colors locked in, labels carefully assigned. By lunchtime, the system sparkles with organization. It feels like progress, but the assignment you needed to finish remains untouched. No draft written, no client feedback addressed, just the glow of preparation. This tiny loop illustrates the larger split. One side creates the appearance of diligence, while the other side bears the reality that nothing meaningful has moved. Workplace research confirms this is more than a personal habit. Many organizations now rely on dozens of disconnected tools, a setup that increases friction instead of smoothing it. Planning multiplies while focus thins out. The illusion gets stronger through appearances. A neatly arranged chart looks like efficiency. A project dashboard with shifting progress bars looks like momentum. Yet those visuals often track activity rather than movement toward key results. You can complete subtasks all week, but if the main objective remains still, performance hasn't improved. This is why meetings can feel packed and updates impressive, yet deadlines slide by unacknowledged. The digital record points to order, while deliverables tell a different story. Continuing to operate in fantasy feels easier because it isn't measurable. You can always say you could stay focused for 12 hours or would finish a draft in one sitting without needing to prove it. As soon as you move from plans to action, limits surface, tasks take longer than assumed, interruptions arrive, attention wanes. Action reveals where effort falls short. Fantasy remains untouchable because it never has to answer to a clock or outcome. That disconnect explains why many find comfort in organizing indefinitely rather than experiencing the test of actual work. Remote and hybrid work environments complicated this further. With less direct oversight, workers lean heavily on digital planning and project boards to display effort. Updates, polished timelines, and perfectly managed dashboards can substitute for tangible progress. Yet this doesn't always mean workers are less capable. Analytics have shown that remote-only employees, for example, often log an average of nearly half an hour more focused time each day. At the same time, they also face new interruptions that scatter attention across channels. This makes the gap between appearance and reality more situational. For some, the flexibility increases output, while for others it masks hours lost to constant digital check-ins. Numbers reveal how widespread the pattern has become. Studies in 2025 pointed out that a typical worker spends close to 8 hours a week interacting with organizational platforms, tweaking priorities, uploading updates, polishing categories. Of that time, only a slice translates into measurable action. The rest is swallowed by upkeep. When multiplied across an entire workforce, those hours amount to entire workdays that look busy without producing outcomes. Another metric driving this home is net effective hours, the time where activities produce results. Compared to official work hours, the gap keeps widening. Logged-in time doesn't match delivered work. The story of high potential persists while the record of results falls away. If that sounds abstract, consider how it feels on a smaller scale. A worker believes they just need to fine-tune their system. One more folder structure, one more integration, one more perfected routine before output surges. Days pass and projects remain stuck at the same halfway mark. The worker reassures themselves that the next fix will unlock momentum. But the loop persists: tweak, delay, repeat. The sense of being capable gets preserved, but the work itself stands still. Why is this cycle so persistent? Because it protects identity. As long as you sit in preparation, you get to keep being the person who has everything under control. No data proves otherwise until you move into execution. And once you take that step, reality tests the self-image. Maybe you aren't as fast as you imagined. Maybe the work has rough edges. That clarity hurts, so it becomes less threatening to polish structures than to face imperfection. Fantasy feels more forgiving, while reality holds you accountable. The effects accumulate fast. Entire companies invest in systems to appear seamless, all while net productive hours lag. Entire teams log time updating boards, while priority milestones stall. Research confirms that AI adoption and heavier tool use often extend working hours instead of shortening them, because each new feature adds maintenance as well as complexity. Put simply, every new promise hides another cost. Where the fantasy is control, the reality is more scattered effort. Breaking the pattern requires concrete steps. First, notice when organizing becomes a substitute for progress. Catch yourself when you're configuring tools instead of completing tasks. Second, choose one simple metric to measure this week, not 10, not a whole dashboard. It might be one paragraph drafted, one client response sent, one key task marked complete. Third, practice executing with a timer, 20 or 30 minutes. The goal is to do the thing, not to plan the system around it. These steps sound small, but they anchor activity in reality rather than illusion. This is the real danger of living inside the fantasy of productivity. Hours pass, energy fades, but outcomes stand still. The structures that look polished can keep entire organizations convinced that progress exists, until missed deadlines and looming goals make it impossible to ignore. In the end, the fantasy drains more than time. It erodes focus by pulling attention into image management instead of honest execution. And that erosion has a hidden cost, one that reaches deeper than the hours lost on apps and charts. It starts feeding on the very parts of yourself you've been trying hardest to avoid. Cost of avoiding the shadow. Avoiding unflattering traits may seem protective, but in practice, it shifts focus and steadily drains mental energy. Concealing aspects of your behavior forces you to divide attention between actual work and maintaining appearances. That second layer of effort rarely draws direct notice, yet it weakens concentration over time. Even without visible failure, the ongoing defense of an image dulls precision and slows progress. Each time the shadow is ignored, clarity slips, because energy is redirected into disguise rather than into creating results. Perfectionism highlights this cost. On the surface, it poses as high standards, but often it reflects a deeper fear of letting imperfect work be seen. When you rewrite the same line for the fourth or fifth time, what you're avoiding is the discomfort of calling something finished. The hours consumed offer safety, not advancement. A useful test: if you edited a paragraph more than 3 times before sending, chances are you polished instead of progressed. Try the 3-pass rule this week: draft, revise, review, then move on. That discomfort you feel at releasing it is the real step forward. Elaborate systems reveal the same pattern. A task manager loaded with dozens of categories and color codes offers the sense of precision, but the system itself produces little progress. It feels impressive to present dashboards with fine-grained labels, but when asked how many outcomes have actually been delivered, silence often follows. This is the shadow in visible form, avoidance packaged to look like diligence. These forms of avoidance are rarely challenged because, on the surface, they look like commitment. A colleague who spends hours polishing a presentation might be praised for their thoroughness, even as deadlines slip. The problem isn't that detail work has no value, it's that endless refinements can quietly replace actual delivery. In some organizational cultures, optics matter more than results, and in those environments the tendency to reward polish over output deepens the hidden costs. The shadow uses that misplaced recognition to persist, feeding on admiration while progress falls behind. The cost also arises in the countless micro-distractions that hidden flaws generate. When procrastination or fear is suppressed, the mind doesn't forget, it keeps running background checks to ensure the disguise holds. A person might not notice, but that unease interrupts focus throughout the day. Lingering doubts: was the report good enough? Did that task really get completed? Will someone notice the delay? Surface repeatedly. Each interruption steals a fragment of time, and accumulated over hours, those fragments become significant. Team environments amplify the effect. People appear to manage competing demands, but much of their energy shifts between maintaining appearances and doing real work. Someone caught in research as procrastination may sound confident in meetings, but later feel anxious about their actual workload. That anxiety leaks into communication, affects focus, and may even cost sleep. Productivity falters not because people lack skill, but because energy burns away in the effort to hide the struggle. As these habits spread, whole organizations carry the cost. One individual's disguised avoidance seems minor, but multiplied across dozens or hundreds of employees, the numbers expand quickly. A company may pay for 40 hours of scheduled work per person, only to find the meaningful output reflects far fewer. Arrivals and updates suggest dedication. End products tell a different story. Training and new apps are added as fixes, but unless the shadow is brought into view, the same cycle repeats: polish without completion. Gallup's State of the Global Workplace shows this dynamic clearly. Employee engagement remains low while reported well-being declines, reflecting that hidden stress drains energy at scale, even when surface commitment looks intact. The hardest part is that these patterns resist measurement. Standard performance metrics log meeting counts, task completions, or hours logged in systems, numbers that often reinforce the habits of avoidance. The shadow thrives because it adapts to what's measured. Workers polishing slides may appear enthusiastic. A long list of micro-tasks checked off each day looks busy, but behind these tallies, essential progress may remain stalled. Real evaluation must cut past appearances, asking whether effort advances outcomes or only maintains a mask. Viewed from the inside, protective language also reinforces the cycle. It feels safer to say you maintain very high standards than to admit that criticism worries you. It seems easier to point to elaborate systems when milestones slip than to admit that procrastination won out. Words act like shields, helpful for self-image in the short term, but costly when patterns compound over months. Concealed flaws behave like hidden debts, gathering interest until they exceed capacity. The psychological cost is as heavy as the practical one. Every day spent hiding flaws adds tension between outer identity and inner reality. That tension drains more than time. It consumes emotional reserves. The person who constantly maintains appearances also maintains a steady undercurrent of anxiety, fearing exposure. Stress spikes when deadlines press against perfectionist habits, and burnout develops not only from hours worked, but from the demand to keep the hidden shadow out of sight. The exhaustion isn't about overwork alone. It's about continual pretending. Ironically, what people struggle hardest to conceal often contains practical value. Perfectionism signals care for quality and can be productive when used consciously at the end of a process instead of as a stall. Procrastination reflects difficulty with starting, but can also mark stages of creative incubation if acknowledged. Even fear of release shows a desire for acceptance, which, once recognized, can sharpen how communication is designed. Refusing to look at these traits blocks the chance to work with them. What could become strength remains stalled as avoidance. The underlying payoff is straightforward. Avoiding the shadow doesn't preserve productivity, it taxes it. Attention that might create results is instead spent covering weaknesses. Focus that might generate solutions is invested in maintaining appearances. Scaled across entire teams, these habits turn into significant collective losses, projects that run long, opportunities missed, profits reduced. What begins as minor personal habits, another draft, another recheck, another reorganization, expands into structural inefficiency. It's easy to laugh at the story of someone with 47 color-coded categories in their planner, but 0 tasks crossed out. The humor cuts because it feels familiar. Almost every workspace carries versions of the same cycle. A spreadsheet endlessly adjusted while no decisions are finalized, a polished document revised daily without release, an inbox kept at 0, but client calls left undone. What looks professional on the outside signals avoidance within. And here lies the deeper cost. The strongest drag on productivity doesn't always come from workload or external pressure. It comes from the invisible habits individuals refuse to face. They reinforce high standards as armor, stack systems as cover, and polish surfaces until the difference between appearance and movement disappears. Without pulling these shadows into clear view, the drain continues, widening the gap between what looks like progress and what actually moves forward. Recognizing that gap is not simple. It demands a kind of honesty that goes beyond checking lists or showing dashboards. It means asking whether the energy spent protecting your image could have built something measurable. The next challenge is whether you're willing to test that directly, whether you would rather stay inside the comfort of potential or confront what the numbers reveal about your real output. Facing measurement without fear. When appearances no longer hold, the question becomes simple. What happens when you place yourself against actual evidence? This is the task of facing measurement without fear. Honest numbers reveal what stories usually conceal. They set boundaries, and those boundaries can sting. But unlike fantasy, they give you a clear starting point. For most people, the problem isn't lack of desire to improve, it's the anxiety of seeing themselves quantified. Measurement strips away ambiguity. If you write 5 pages a week, the figure cannot be spun into brilliance. If your average turnaround time doubles that of your peers, the comparison speaks plainly. Numbers expose, and with exposure comes a threat to identity, which is why many avoid them. Not because they don't care about results, but because knowing feels riskier than imagining. Potential offers safety. As long as you don't measure, you can tell yourself you could be excellent. You can believe your best work is waiting for the right day, conditions, or inspiration. Fantasy lets you hold unlimited possibility. Reality imposes limits. Reality might say you're improving at only 1% a month. And when identity is tied to the idea of hidden brilliance, those limits feel harsh. Yet what limits also do is provide a foundation for growth. The resistance to measurement often shows up in feedback. Verbal encouragement can be stretched or interpreted, but data is harder to challenge. A chart that displays low completion rates or high error counts is not softened by interpretation. Facing it brings discomfort, but it also opens a path forward. Without those figures, improvement becomes guesswork, and guesswork rarely raises performance. Ego protection becomes the priority when measurement is avoided. Someone might spend weeks planning a project, mapping systems, and fine-tuning tasks, but never track their actual completion. The project feels alive in preparation, but never materializes in evidence. That hidden fear ensures progress is sacrificed to maintain self-image. The irony is clear. You preserve pride but abandon learning. Measurement is costly in another sense too. It disrupts the stories people cling to. If you've built your self-image around long hours, time tracking may reveal that peers who work fewer but sharper sessions accomplish more. If you pride yourself on speed, quality control checks may show double the errors. Such revelations break comforting illusions. They're not just numbers, they dismantle personal identities. That breakdown is why people resist, even when numbers could be their guide. Yet those who choose to measure usually end up stronger. The sting of exposure doesn't last as long as the clarity it provides. A runner who learns they run a 12-minute mile may be discouraged at first, but now progress is quantifiable. A student who tracks actual focused hours of study may discover the gap between intention and execution, but can also watch that gap shrink week by week. Measured truth hurts less over time because it creates a direction forward. Consider 2 colleagues balancing coursework and a side hustle. One refuses to tally actual work hours, choosing instead to trust their effort feels sufficient. They fall into cycles of doubt, never sure if they're doing enough. The other logs their weekly hours and deliverables. Early numbers are disappointing, but over months the record shows improvement, study time grows, projects complete more reliably, distractions retreat. The first chooses comfort but stays uncertain. The second accepts discomfort, yet gains proof they're progressing. Only one builds steady confidence rooted in evidence. Recent workforce analytics reinforce this lesson. Studies show measured productive time often looks very different from logged hours. In fact, one report found total hours in the workday shortened slightly, but average productive time actually rose by about 2%. The implication is clear. What matters isn't the appearance of effort, but the concrete measurement of outcomes. Without tracking, those shifts remain invisible, leaving the illusion of decline when real output is actually improving. At its best, measurement moves you from guesswork to clarity. The tool is simple but easy to misuse. If it becomes punishment, it can cause paralysis or frustration, leading some to abandon the attempt entirely. Measurement works only if framed as a baseline for growth, not a verdict on personal worth. Numbers are not the whole story. They are starting points, reference marks that help you adjust course. A disappointing tally is not failure. It is evidence of where progress begins. The question is how to start tracking without fear or overcomplication. 3 simple prompts can establish a path. Track one meaningful output each day rather than activity, run a 25-minute sprint, and record whether the key task was finished, and note just one distraction along with its trigger. These small habits turn abstract effort into concrete data. They replace assumptions with visible evidence, showing what patterns either block or build momentum. The choice comes down to which pain you are willing to accept: the sharp but brief discomfort of knowing where you stand, or the slow erosion of never testing what you claim. Avoiding measurement keeps pride intact today, but guarantees stagnation tomorrow. Facing measurement shakes identity now, but creates direction you can improve. That direction compounds, bringing confidence that can't be fabricated by potential alone. The fear never disappears completely. Each metric review carries the risk of embarrassment, yet repetition softens the sting. With time, numbers become less about judgment and more about insight. You remain the same person before and after, but with a clearer view of where your energy lands. With that clarity, setbacks turn into baselines, and progress becomes tangible. What stands out is how often people underestimate the relief of data. Ambiguity is stressful. Stories about yourself are costly to maintain. But once reality is measured, the unknown shrinks. It may confirm weakness, but weakness visible is already weakness being reshaped. Growth begins not when you protect identity, but when you test it. And this is where fear changes shape. It is no longer simply about what the numbers will reveal, but also about what they might uncover in you. Because once the flaws come into the open, you may start to notice they are not just barriers, but signals, sometimes even strengths in disguise.